So I'm going to start with the background on this flower, because by painting in the background you can see the actual flower framed and then how much colour you need to put on the flower. So I'm going to start with mixing my three colours for my soft black green, which are the vivid turquoise or malachite, the dark shading green and the purple. So I condition my brush, I have a little pot and I dip my open medium with my brush and condition the brush on the tile. And then I go into my vivid turquoise first, pull it down, work it to the side, pull it down, work it to the side. A little of the dark shading green and a little of the purple. Now when I lay that down, I see what colour I get, and if I need a little bit more green, I just add a little bit more green until I get the colour I want. And then I load it sideways into the brush and I start to apply it to the tile. So I turn the tile, I bring the colour in around the iris, cut it in and then filter little crisscross strokes outwards. Now notice I've left some of the green from the fire before showing, because we want some light shining through like it would do in nature. So I then load the brush again, and this style, this way of loading ensures that you get a nice variation of colour. It's not always the same. So I cut into the other side of the iris, in around the petal, and then just softly crisscross filter out, graduating the colour away at the side. So that's two patches and a little tiny bit around the bottom petal. Softly filter it out, leaving nice lots of light behind. And then I'll clean my brush in my baby oil first. And I only use baby oil to clean my brush and to get the colour out of my brush and to mix my paints. But I always go into my open medium, wipe on the side of my dish, work it into the brush, wipe off the excess, and then I use the brush and hand right back up the handle this time, because I want flexibility. I very softly crisscross at the edge of where I put the brush strokes. Now don't go back to this area and pull the colour, because you've just spent time putting it in and you'll lose it. And do not overwork at this stage. Soften right over the leaf, turn it to the other area and do the same thing. So we keep the nice deep colour near to the flower and just softly filter that colour away, leaving some nice irregular edges. Now I've done all the bottom of this flower, and I take a little and go around the petal, because you don't really want to finish your filtering at the edge of a petal, because it'll look cut in half. And the same here on the other side petal. Just softly filter almost what's left on your brush. So that's the green shadow, and then around the iris, clean the brush again, stick it into the open medium, wipe off the excess, and then you're ready to load again. I used a little bit of very soft purple. Now that's the colour that's going to be in the flower, but what I want to do, and I'd love to show you, is just to cut in to the side of the petal and very softly filter that colour out. And what I'm going to do is to make a shadow iris there in a minute with my wipeout tool and my little windows that I do, and then turn the tile Just work very lightly into that purple because it's a very strong colour, and do the same on the other side. Crisscross, crisscross. And what will happen is that when this tile is fired, you will see the pretty colours that you put on the first fire shining through. You mustn't load the brush too heavily, because the whole idea is to see colour through colour, which is what gives you the depth. And I actually think that that's probably enough. I'm just going to put a little bit of shadow green here, very lightly. And so that's the iris absolutely surrounded with colour. And now we can see that the iris is framed, so it's quite pale. And we have the chance now to go with the colour that we're going to use on the iris, which in this case is purple, and load it. I've just put some open medium and worked it into the brush. Pull the colour down, work it in, pull the colour down. And we start, as always, with the petal at the back. So we are going to frame that front petal with this purple. You may need to load again to pull it into the edge of the upright, the front upright, which is what we're actually framing at the moment. And then when we've done that, we're using the same colour, but I wipe it off and reapply in a side load fashion onto the brush again. And we come to the next two back petals, which are the two falls which we're seeing from the side. So we cut in around that front upright and literally just filter a little bit of colour on that petal. Now you can see it's not heavy applications this time, because you do want to see what's underneath. I'm loading again, turning the tile and cutting in on the other side of that fall, that sideways viewed fall. Crisscross, crisscross, right over the petal. Don't stick to the actual lines of the petal created, but wash it through to the outside as well. So that's 3 done, and now the 4th. I hope I'm not going too fast for you now, because I'm aware that I don't want you to be bored. So the front upright is the next petal to paint, and I frame the pollen area on that front fall, and then I filter the colour out into that petal, working right towards the edges, because when I clean the brush and start to wipe colour out and take the wipe out through in the direction of the way that the petal grows, which is always from the calyx, which is behind this pollen area, it will do the job of making the brush strokes coming in the right direction for me. So that's the front upright, and then I'm going to turn it round and do the last petal, which is the last fall, which is facing us. And so we paint this slightly differently as we did before, and we paint each side of the pollen area. So I turn it upside down, and with the brush with the shaded load, I pull the brush strokes into the pollen area, and again I'm crisscrossing out to the edge. And it must be soft and it must be light. And then I'm going to do the other side, cut it into the pollen area with the side of the brush, and softly filter that colour outwards. Now what you have here now is what I call a fairly messy soft look. And as long as you've got that, it doesn't have to be tidy. You know, this style is not tidy. It's a whole series of layers of colour, which once you start to use your wipeout tool to wipe out some light at the edges of the petals and pull it in, will take the direction of the flower through to the calyx. So we're going to start with the back petal again, the first one we painted, with the chisel end of the wipeout tool, and we're going to dance, I call it a dance, around that petal, sometimes into it, sometimes outside it. Turn the tile, and then with the brush, which is cleaned and conditioned with no paint on, we go behind the wipeout line, press, lift and pull. Take it parallel, turn your tile, behind the wipeout line, press, lift and pull. Press, lift and pull. Now you're not wiping all of that paint out, you're just taking it in the direction of the petal folds towards the calyx. Turn, press, lift and pull. It's a very quick movement, and then when you come to the side you curl the brush stroke so that it still comes towards the calyx. So that's your back petal, your back upright, which is at the back of the front upright. Again, you take your wipeout tool for the next petal, dance around it, in and out. You can go into that paint because that's what helps to give you some of the shadow as you come. Clean your brush. Parallel, you can start anywhere, but parallel to a wipeout line, press and pull towards the calyx. Press and curve at the side. Press and pull towards the calyx each time. Turn the tile, always pull towards you. Now what you're doing, I'm curving towards the calyx, is creating some quite nice folds. This is a flower with many folds. Okay? So when you've finished, you've got those brush strokes coming towards the calyx, and you can see the folds within them as well. So the next petals we're going to do are the two side falls. So wipeout tool, chisel end again, dance around, and I usually do one little curve out because it almost comes at the side to a point or a soft point. So take your clean condition brush again with medium in it, pull and curve to the calyx. Press, pull and curve to the calyx. Okay, so now we've done the one side fall, side of the fall, and now we're going to do the other one. A little dance to a point, and then a curve at the side. So you can see the light that you pull into that petal as you go. So parallel to the wipe out and curve and lift towards the calyx. So that's the two side falls, the two sides of falls, and the last petal you have to do is the front facing fall. As we talked about on the first video, the iris has 3 uprights and 3 falls. The 3 falls all have pollen. You're seeing the sides of 2 here and 1 full front. So we turn it again. I might want to do a few little more wipeouts on that very frilly petal which faces you. Turn the tile so you pull the colour towards you with the condition brush. Curve and pull. Curve and pull. And this time you're coming towards this pollen area, but behind that is the calyx, so you're still pulling that brush towards the calyx. Press and pull. Now when I finish this petal, you see I pour some nice background colour into that, which actually is very pretty because it gives you some, you know, shadow from the back of the petal. So that's the iris finished for the moment, but the last thing that I do the pollen sacs, but I also do the leaves. So I'm going to take some more of this soft black green that I use, which is vivid turquoise, dark shading green and purple or similar. I shade into the petal area. And I turn the brush. Now here I don't want to put too much because I've already got enough. I want to put some where the stalk comes into the flower, and I want to put some where that leaf comes into the flower. It's all helping to frame the flower ultimately. And then I just pull a little colour from my brush through that to show it up. And the same here. Turn the tile upside down, and here's the stalk, and there is another impressionistic sword-like leaf going through the bottom. So that's the leaves now and the stalk. So what we're going to do now is the pollen area, and I use a pointer for this, a small pointer in medium. First, condition it in medium. I'm going to use a slight combination, a tiny little bit of orange in that brush to soften. This is autumn brown, but it can be raw sienna or any, you know, deep orangey brown, and then work the orangey colour into the brush. Because we're going to shade this area this time, I'm just going to tuck this colour, and we won't cover all of the orange that we put on the fire before, because we want to leave some of that other colour showing through. Sorry, I've just touched that petal, so I'm going to take that out. And then the last one is the pollen in the front. So we're just going to shade that so that you've got, you know, some light area and some shaded area. And then we're going to soften it. You can use any brush for this. I mean, I'm so used to my big one, but, you know, if you want to use a smaller one, that's fine. And then, this time I'm going to use my thin wipeout tool. I didn't have it before, and I used the fat one. But the thin one's better because you get finer little stamens, and I pull them out from that colour. Pull, pull. It's a flick, 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 flick. And then I just stipple. So what you're going to see under it is some of that colour that was underneath, which gives it a nice little bit of texture. And the same with this one. I mean, remember this is impressionistic, so what we're doing, although we're doing, you know, a kind of a natural version of this iris, we're accentuating its prominent points and simplifying everything. So it's not botanical, it's a very impressionistic version, but you can still see what it is, obviously. Okay, and then the last one is this area at the side. Just dipple a bit with the wipeout tool into the inside of the petal and just pull out some nice stamens. So the last thing I do, clean and condition the brush, medium on the brush, very, very softly, hand right to the end of the brush to give me flexibility. I soften all. It's what I put in my studies all the time, always soften all at the end. Just at the outside. Don't go back to where you've put the colour or you'll pull it out. You want a very loose, soft look. Crisscross, crisscross, crisscross. You mustn't be careful about it. If you're too careful, it will look too neat. And this is anything but a neat style. Suits me down to the ground, being a very messy person. Okay, so that's the poppy finished, and this is the very last thing I do. I take the chisel end of the wipeout tool and I wipe some little windows of light, which is a fairly characteristic thing with the style that I do. It's almost like little tiny windows of light coming from the background, but I always soften them. Don't leave them hard at the edge where you've pulled a wipe out. Always very gently soften them. And there we have it, our second fire on our Impressionistic Iris.